Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In order to obtain barakah for today's event, let us begin the session with Kitab Al-Fatiha. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to Associate Professor Dr. Shaliza, Director, Risk Management Office, Honorable Speaker Dr. Ahmad L. Muhammadi bin Muhammad Uthman L. Muhammadi from ISTAC IIUM, Risk Coordinators and the rest International Islamic University Malaysia colleagues. Alhamdulillah, we are gathered here once again for Premier Risk Talk 2023, entitled Managing Security Risk for Public Universities in Malaysia. I'm Siti Alia Masduki from Risk Management Office IIUM, will be the moderator for today's event. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to welcome Associate Professor Dr. Shaliza, the Director, Risk Management Office IIUM, to deliver her opening remarks. Welcome, Doctor.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you, Dr. Alia. Dr. Alia is the Deputy Director of the Risk Management Office. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, the MST Office, for their participation to provide us with the link, and also the Office of RMO for initiating this talk. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank everybody as well for continuing after our annual meeting just now. And during the meeting as well, I had highlighted on the risk aspects on the security, which we have discussed just now on the 3 levels of security, in the sense of physical security of the buildings, against climate, against animals. And then the second layer of the security is on the intangible part that we have highlighted on in terms of cyber security attacks, data leakage, and processes, okay, data processes. So for today, this particular talk on risk security is in terms of the socials, in terms of sense of social. That I think there's a concern on it that most of us need to look at, especially now that after COVID, post-COVID, the borders have been opened, and then our numbers of students have started to increase from various countries, and also of the economic crisis, geopolitical crisis at the Ukraine, as well as the current one is Palestine, Israel. So if you remember this now, among the talk that during our risk meeting, I also highlighted on the geopolitical crisis, on the mitigations, involuntary mitigations of people. Okay, that is among them is Rohingya, okay, and Palestine. So previously was from the Ukraine. So these things also maybe in some not directly, indirectly would impact us, okay, at KCJM level, at each level. So how are we going to overcome on these issues? So this is on the third aspect of the risk that we want to open up to the rest at KCJM level to think, and might be in the future, you might want to register among your risk registers. So I would like to thank also in the beginning Dr. Muhammad Ahmad for accepting our invitation to give this talk, so that everybody will be enlightened and aware of the current issue and status on the security, and especially at the IPT, or Institute of Higher Learning Education. So I pass back to Dr.
Okay, thank you, Doctor, for the warm welcome opening speech. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment that we are waiting for. Before we begin, let me briefly introduce the background of the speaker. Dr. Ahmad L. Muhammadi is an assistant professor at the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, ISTAC IIUM. Besides that, he holds various external positions such as Associate Fellow at the International Center for Counter-Terrorism, ICCT, The Hague, Netherlands, International Advisory Committee member at Global Peace Institute, United Kingdom, Associate Research Fellow at the Accounting Research Institute, University Technology Mara, UITM, Malaysia, and the Head of Responsible Research and Innovation, ISTAC, IIUM. Since 2011, he works closely with the Special Branch Counter-Terrorism Division, Royal Malaysia Police and Prison Department to implement the rehabilitation and de-radicalization programs for individuals detained under terrorism laws in Malaysia. Dr. Ahmad is also a member of de-radicalization panel and expert appointed by the Ministry of Home Affairs for cases investigated under the Security Offences Act SOSMA 2012 and Prevention of Terrorism Act POTA 2015, which requires him to testify as an expert witness during trial. He is also part of the research team appointed by the Institute of Public Security of Malaysia, Ministry of Home Affairs, to develop National Action Plan for Preventing Violent Extremism in Malaysia. In addition to that, he was regularly consulted by the national and international bodies on the issues of security and terrorism in Malaysia and Southeast Asia. Prior to that, he was a consultant to the United Nations Development Programme 2019 and think tank members and consultant to the Institute for Youth Research Malaysia, Ministry of Youth and Sports Malaysia. Dr. Ahmad was also co-principal investigator at the IIUM ISTAC's Extremism Analytical Research Unit, EARU, in collaboration with the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses of Terrorism, University of Maryland, United States. In 2023, he also been appointed as an independent expert by the International Criminal Investigative Assistance Program under the U.S. Department of Justice and the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. The above-mentioned credentials are only the tip of the figurative iceberg. Suffice to say that Dr. Ahmad Al-Muhammadi qualifications and achievements are multitudinous. With all the knowledge and experience that he has graciously agreed to share with us today, this talk will indeed be of great benefit to all participants, inshallah. So without further ado, I hereby welcome Dr. Ahmad Al-Muhammadi to begin his talk. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, Dr. Alia, for the introduction. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and very good morning. First and foremost, Dr. Shaliza and Brother Asri and the team at the Risk Management Office, and also the officers at the MSD, the co-organizer for this event this morning. I would like to take this opportunity to thanks and also to congratulate the Risk and Management Office for organizing this program for us this morning. I believe that it is very timely, and I also would like to congratulate their good work at the IUM and also and all the campuses under IUM when it comes to the risk management. So I'm here actually this morning to support the work that has been done by the Risk Management Office, and I hope that my sharing this morning is useful. Actually, I prepared some slide for me to share with you. I hope that we can benefit from this slide. Hopefully you can see the slide. Okay. Okay. The topic that is going to be discussed this morning is managing security risk for public universities in Malaysia. So actually, I'm speaking from a specific scope and point of view. So there are two aspects that I'm going to talk about, or I have to touch in this presentation. One is the security risk, and the second one is the public universities. Of course, when we talk about risk, there are various dimensions of risk. For example, financial, the asset, the system, the physical aspect of the organization, the cyber security aspect, and so on. But security risks in this context of our discussion today refers to risk and threat to national security and public order. And I'm going to speak this issue from in the context of education institution. And the second one is the public university. That is I refer to public or the government higher education institution in Malaysia, such as university, colleges, and so on. And it's also related to universities community. For example, the personnel, staff, student, and associated individual or entity with the organization due to their involvement or activities that threaten national security. So these are the angle that I'm going to speak about this morning. Next, I would like to go on this question. Why this topic is relevant to us today? There are four reasons. There are four reasons why we have to speak about the security risk in the context of the public universities in Malaysia today. Number one is because of the fast changing global security landscape. I think Professor Shalija just now mentioned about this one. The fast changing global security landscape, which is happening right now because of the globalization. Globalization has changed the way we work, the way we interact with others, and also because of the connectivity that we have. Before this, it is very difficult for us to be connected with others. Right now, with the smartphone, it is very much easier. And with the movement of people, it is very easy to travel from one place to another today. And because of the complexity of issues, we have a lot of issues which is taking place outside the country. But unfortunately, something which is taking place outside Malaysia today is also going to affect us here in the country. And in the 21st century, actually, we travel more than our ancestors. And we meet more people from different parts of the world. I think this is the fact. If you go to the airport and you're standing at the airport, the arrival or the departure, actually we rub shoulders with people from maybe more than 20, 30 citizens or the people from different countries. This never happened during our ancestors. This never happened during our great-great-grandfathers. But in the 21st century, human beings actually interact very closely with each other. So this is the reality that we are living today. We are not alone. We are not only sitting here at IUM, for example. We are sitting here in Malaysia and we don't interact with others. That is something of the past, actually. Today, we are actually having interaction with a lot of people from different parts of the world. Another one is, we are also experiencing something which is called globalization of the locals and localization of the global. What does that mean? It means that something which is taking place at the local level can be a global event today, and something which has happened outside the country can be a local event today. If you look at, for example, in the case of Palestine, how does the Palestine and Israeli conflict affect the global community, including us in Malaysia. This has never happened before in the 18th century, in the 19th century. But today, because of the connectivity that we have, then we are actually being exposed to anything that happened around the world. So that is the meaning of the globalization of the local and localization of the global, meaning that you can actually create the news locally and it is being shared in the whole world through this certain platform. You can use TikTok, you can use Facebook, you can use YouTube. For example, this talk today can be viewed globally, not only here in Malaysia, but also in different countries around the world. So that is the example of how connected we are in terms of technology. And this is actually, this reality affect the way we interact with others. You cannot imagine or you cannot think that you are actually sitting here alone without interacting or having networking with others. And if you look at today's life, you can imagine how the smartphone that you have actually right now has changed your daily life, either positively or negatively. You can connect with people, but you also can use the similar thing, or other people can use that technology that is the smartphone in order to scam people in different part of the world. Recently, I spoke to DIG, Datuk Sri Ayub Khan, and he mentioned to me that one of the biggest challenge in the police force right now is to handle the cybersecurity because of the scam. Scam or scammers become a huge problem. And if you look at the report by the FBI, he said that during pandemic, we have health pandemic, but after pandemic, we have cyber pandemic. Cyber pandemic meaning that the scammers, the hackers take the opportunity to make use of the facilities in the cyberspace to exploit that and to scam people and to exploit the system, to steal information and so on. Maybe we think that this has happened outside, but actually that is the mindset. It also can happen in our place, it also can happen in our organization. I will explain about this later. So you also can see that how, for example, if you have a social media, how personal data can be voluntarily shared, that you share in the social media or apps can be used against us. That's another thing. We use smartphone and we share data. We share our email, we share our phone number, we share our bank account, we share this and that. If somebody is able to penetrate into this kind of information, they actually in control of a lot of personal data that can be used against the person. And we also had to remember that this information actually we shared voluntarily. We are not forced to share this. We are willingly share this. But unfortunately, it can be used against us. And then we also can see the mobility of people. If you look at from the education point of view, Malaysia ranked 9th place among the international students for tertiary education. We talk about mobility, okay? The increase of student intake from different countries. If you look at the education Malaysia statistic, we have people from around the world converge in Malaysia. So that actually impacts us. National economy, of course, it is positively impact the national economy in positive way. It's also impact university economically, but there are also risks. We're going to talk about that later. So these facilities are positive things for us. It's benefit economy, benefit society, and benefit country in general. However, this phenomenon also presents certain risks for us, for the country, and for the organization. I mean, the presence of people and the open sky policy like this have certain risk. And I think that we have to open our eyes to identify the risk that we are facing as a result of the changing landscape in the world today. The second one is the mindset. this is also another reason why we have to talk about this subject. We have to talk about this topic. What does it mean by the mindset? We have a new and sophisticated problem. We are facing a new problem, new challenge, new obstacle, but we have an old mindset. We have archaic mindset. The way we think is a traditional way of thinking. And then it plus with a negative attitude. We are not ready to embrace changes. We are not ready to see things differently. And we just go about our business as usual, or we just carry on with whatever we do every day, because we have become so comfortable and we have become so oblivious to the emerging threat, to the emerging reality, to the emerging phenomenon that is taking place around the world. So we become trapped, actually. We become trapped in our own thinking that we are safe. Actually, we are not. And this happened because of the way we think. I will explain more about this when I come to that subject. The third one is, when it comes to security risk, we have government security policy. For example, is National Security Policy, as you can see here. It is published by National Security Council. It explains about what does that mean by national security, meaning that what threaten, what is the thing that is considered to be a threat to us, what our core value, what Malaysia's core value that becomes so important for us to protect. This kind of thing need to be aware, need to be known by everybody, especially organization that has hosting, that hosts a lot of people from the outside. In the case of the higher education institution, is the student, is the staff. And we have networking, interaction with the global international community. And then the other one is the Dasar Keselamatan dan Ketentraman Awam. This is another document that we can refer to when we talk about national security. That is the reason why when I want to talk about the security risk or the national security risk, I mentioned two things. One is a national security, meaning that any risk that threatens the security of the country, and also something which is threaten the public order, or ketentraman awam, they call it. These two things is very important for Malaysia to protect. Okay, we are going to look at deeper in this later. And in addition to that, we also have several case studies. There are selected cases involve lecturers, involve students in the matter of national security. You can see this thing happen, assassination of Dr. Fadi Al-Batsh, for example, a Palestinian lecturer. And Dr. Mahmoud, who joined Abu Sayyaf in Mindanao, Dr. Azhari, Jamaah Islamiyah. These are the names, those people who are actually involved in national security issues. If you Google their name, you can find out who are they, why they are considered to be a threat. And this has happened in the higher education institution. So that is the reason why I think this topic is very, very important for us to discuss. And we have to explore what can we do, what are the preparations that we can make in order to move forward. So new security landscape that we have today pose great challenge to risk administrator at the higher education institution, and therefore it requires a radical change in our thinking, in our working culture, and in our mindset. So we need a new paradigm to look at security dimension versus the traditional way of looking at security. Maybe before we look at security, it's just like security in terms of putting security guard at the gates. But right now, it's no longer about putting security guard on the gates. We also need to be visually, or from the cybersecurity perspective, have a firewall to protect the data. So this is something, the reason why we have to talk about this subject. Now, what is the way forward? The first thing that we should change, in my view, is to develop security mindset. This is very important because without having security mindset, you cannot identify the threats because you are not equipped with a certain kind of way of thinking. So we need to have a security mindset because working in security related field requires specific kind of mindset that is called security mindset. For example, if you look at this pen, maybe to a lecturer or student, they just say a pen and the pencil is something that you can use to write, you can use to sign your signature, and you use something that you can use to draw something. However, for those people who has security mindset, they actually having a different way of looking at it. The pen also can use as weapon. That's the reason why, you know, if you have experience of going to visit prison, I'm not sure whether any one of you has that, but I have a few experiences of some experiences of going to prison regularly. If you want to enter prison, not only that you have to leave your phone, your smartphone outside. You cannot bring anything. You cannot bring tape recorder or voice recorder. You cannot bring the keys. You cannot bring the wallet. You cannot bring money. You cannot bring anything. So if I go to prison for interview, for example, I can only bring two things: pen and notebook. The rest of the thing I have to leave outside. And if you look at the pen, you cannot imagine that you can do it some some other thing with that pen. But for the security guy, security guard in the prison, they opened my pen and tried to look at what's inside the pen, and I asked what happened here. I mean, why you open up the pen? Because usually the prisoners or other people who has this kind of wild idea to, you know, smuggle something inside, they put inside the pen. So for ordinary people, they don't see this as a threat. But for the certain people, they can see this is something that they can use to harm people. So that is the difference between civilian thinking and the law enforcement thinking, or the people who has a security mindset. Now, I want to show you another picture. If you look at this, you might say, okay, that's sugar. You can use the sugar, put in the drink, you can drink it, you feel good about that. But for those people who are trained in certain expertise, do you know that sugar can be used as an ingredient to make a bomb? Well, it's happened. Sugar, if you mix up together with something else, with some ingredient, I mean, for those people who has a science background, maybe they can understand this. I mentioned about sugar because I'm not just sharing this picture, because it's happened before that sugar was used by certain individual to create a bomb. Maybe it's a limited kind of explosion, but it still can actually produce explosion by using sugar. So for those ordinary for the untrained mind, they don't see it as a threat. But for certain people who are trained, who is able to see more than just a sugar, then they would say, we got to be careful and we have to look at the situation, who is using it, how much kilos that they're using it, maybe more than they should. So this can actually give indication that there is something wrong going on in there. So that is the security mindset. I'm going to show you another picture. The gas cylinder. Well, to someone who like to cook, they say, wow, that's good. We can cook something with this because we have gas. And it can put on the stove, it can lighten the fire, and we can cook. No, actually, it is not. You can use this as the source for the explosion. So that's the idea. Meaning, when we look at something, not just we see things, but we try to analyze it deeper. So, person with security mindset will see things differently than non-security mindset or untrained mind. This kind of mindset is very important for the risk administrator. Because if you are not being properly trained in looking at certain thing, you cannot see it as a threat. Because what is wrong with it? I met many people who see what's wrong with it. The reason being, their mind is not well trained. They're not trained for that. So I would say, therefore, most people see, but they don't observe. There is a big difference between seeing and observing, because observation skill requires training, patience, inquisitiveness, being analytical. You see, but you don't observe. There are two big differences, actually. Most people, they just see, but they don't understand what they see because they do not observe. Observe is different, it's a different level. Just a little bit of entertainment. This is the actual place, actually, in Den Haag. I mentioned about Den Haag because I spent some time in there as an associate fellow in The Hague, in Netherlands. If you happen to be in Den Haag, you can come to this place. They call it Pavilion Malieveld. This place offers a very wonderful pancake and waffle. But for those people who come to this place, they just see it as a place for you to have like a very nice pancake. But this place has a history, actually. This place has been used, I mean, during Cold War, as a place for a meeting by spies, like KGB, like the CIA. They use this restaurant, they use this place to meet with their source. That is the history. I mean, if you just go there, you're not, the people might not tell you, but if you spend some time there, the local gonna tell you, or the people around this place are gonna tell you this is very historic place. The reason why this place is chosen is because it has a unique feature. It has two doors, one to the front doors and the other side is the side door. You also can sit outside and having like a coffee or like a pancake and pizza and so on. But if you look at from the inside, there are two doors, the front doors and the side door, meaning that you can see the threat is coming from outside and you have a time to escape. So that's how the people who has a security mindset think. So you can also see this threat coming from the outside because it has a transparent window. It's a perfect spot for avoiding impending danger or threats. So that's how people think. And this kind of thinking is very, very important. So what does that mean by security mindset? It can be said that it refers to monitoring for potential security anomalies, meaning that there is something which is not really not really in place. It seems to be out of place, for example, meaning that whenever you observe certain thing, it's the thing looks like it is out of place. So it is not only that you observe, you also try to find out, try to investigate these anomalies, this something weird that happened, and try to identify the security flaws. There is maybe something wrong or something deeper inside, and you try to evaluate those flaws in the larger context. So these are the kind of thinking that we need to develop, or active cognitive process to identify security vulnerabilities. So person who has security mindset need to identify what are the vulnerabilities, what are the risks in the system, in the organization, and so on. So one phrase that frequently used when describing security mindset is thinking like an attacker, meaning that if you are an enemy, what are the way and the method that you can use in order to disarm your target? So that kind of thinking. So this kind of mindset is very useful in the work of risk administrator. Thinking about failures and how to trigger them, recognizing how something can be used maliciously or broken, or adversarial thinking or adversarial mindset as a thinking process that considers the potential action of the opposing force working against the desired result. So these are among the ideas related to the security mindset. However, people might say, whenever you have this kind of thinking, they might tell you, are you paranoid? It is not paranoid. Unless if you make a baseless claim, You might be paranoid, or seeking attention for non-issue matters. That might be paranoid, or taking advantage of the situation. However, if you make the claim, if you observe certain thing and it has certain basis, then it is not paranoid. It is something that we have to look deeper and we have to take action. So mindset and skill required by risk administrator or assessors is growth mindset, observation skill, inquisitiveness, analytical, futuristic, because the threat might be futuristic in nature. And we also need to anticipate, I mean, what is going to happen in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, and so on. We also need to have situational awareness. Situational awareness meaning that you're always in the state of alerts. If you walk on the street, for example, I observe many people walk on the street listening to earphone, for example. They are the perfect target for the snatch theft. I'm telling you. If you go to the car from the mall, you're walking to the car. If you are just being oblivious, you become the perfect target for anybody who is going to harm you. Situational awareness equips or it prepares you that whenever you exit from the lift going to the car, you have to make sure that your eyes is looking everywhere and try to detect anything that actually move inside the car, around the area, and so on. This kind of skill is very important for the personal security, they call it. I'm not sure whether you find it this is too much. Maybe because I'm talking like this because of the issue that I'm dealing with, but I hope that it can be very useful skill, especially those people who are actually dealing with the risk issues. Now, we have obstacles and challenges whenever we are dealing with issues. There are some problems. Then we always come across with these kind of problems. Let me share with you a few kind of obstacles. There is a kind of mindset or mentality. We have to wait, or they wait until it's happened. This is a big problem. And a lot of things actually that become a big problem because we wait. We wait and wait until it's happened. Only then we have to take action. We do not take an proactive measures or countermeasures before it's happened. If you're working in the security areas, you cannot wait until it's happened, because once it's happened, it's going to be big. And you don't have the capacity to contain the threats or what happened easily. It is not easy, especially when it comes to security issues. For example, somebody hacked into the system and you are not prepared. It's going to take days, maybe a week, maybe a month to recover or to repair the system. But if you just fix the system, it is better than you wait until something bad happens. And there is also thinking that if it did not happen elsewhere, it will not happen here. Or it never happened. I don't think it's happened before. That was the thinking. This is very dangerous kind of thinking, actually. If you're working in the security environment, you're thinking like, this has never happened. So are you going to wait until it's happened? That's the next question. And worse is, well, let other people doing it. This is also a very destructive attitude or destructive way of thinking. Let other people doing it. Let other department doing it. Let other, unit or agency is taking care of that. So you're going to relieve yourself from that responsibility. Or there is people talk like, oh, don't trouble yourself. Don't trouble yourself. Just relax, man. The world is not going to go crazy. Just relax. Don't trouble yourself too much. Or I'm lazy to think. Or it is not under our department. Let other people handle it. Or boss don't ask you to do it, so don't do it. It's just a small problem. So these are among the problems that we always face, actually. It's not only happen in organization. I don't have experience working in the office environment because academic work differently. But when I work in the law enforcement, I work closely with the law enforcement. They also have similar problem, but they are forced to change their attitude because you are dealing with security. You cannot take it for granted. So now that is the challenge. So we have to fix this one so that we can move forward. Now we go to this another aspect of the discussion, that is a national security policy. So I think that I present first, and then later on we can have a discussion after this. Now I talk about the national security policy. If you open this document, which is published by National Security Council, it defines actually what does it mean by national security, which refers to the state of being free from any threat, whether internally or externally, to its core values. So we have a core value. In Malaysia, we have to protect the core values. Well, so what is it, the core values? So these are the 9 core values. There are 9 core values that Malaysia is striving to protect at any cost. You cannot compromise this. This is the foundation of our country. This is the foundation of our society. Number 1 is territorial sovereignty and integrity, meaning that we have to make sure that our country, our physical, aspect of our country, our borders, is safe from intrusion. That's number 1. That is the first, because you cannot allow other country from anyone or from anywhere actually just penetrate into our country, our territory. That is not acceptable. That's why we have passport, we have a checkpoint, we have custom immigration. Just is to protect the borders. Number 2, socio-political stability. We have to make sure, according to the core value number 2, the social stability, political stability is secured. Anything that attempt to destabilize Malaysia by whatever means, that could be a threat. So anybody from anywhere, including from higher education institution, is trying to undermine the stability, social stability, political stability, is actually a threat to national security. And the third one is national unity. Our country is a multiracial. If anyone tried to disrupt this harmony by raising the issue like 3R, racial issue, religious issue, royal institution issues, they can be a threat. They can be detained under certain law. For example, the defamation, or maybe SOSMA, security offenses, special measure. Number 4, good governance, economic integrity, social justice, sustainable development, people security, meaning that people, physical security from crimes, from attacks, from any kind of harms. We have to make sure that that's why we have the security people put on the gate, for example. We have the police making round or inspection, monitoring the situation. And international recognition, that is a value number 9. So the one that is relevant to us perhaps is socio-political stability, your national unity, and people security. That is the closest to the risk that we are dealing with at the higher education institution. And we also facing the challenge, given the fact that our country is multiracial, our national unity is very fragile. Exposed to tension. That's why 3R issue is very sensitive. We have to make sure that the 3R issue is not being provoked, is not being highlighted and become the source of the conflict. If there is things related to 3R, presence in the higher education institution, the administrator need to take action immediately. If we don't do that, there will be law enforcement from the outside will come and take that action. Challenge to facing the nation democratic system, try to change government into communist system, for example, or try to change government to Islamic caliphate system and remove the democratic system. is also become a challenge and therefore become a threat to national security. Extremism and terrorism, this is another challenge. There are cases that involve students, that involve educators, that involve the staff, personnel that working at the higher education institution involving in extremism, radicalization. We have cases. I do not want to mention which university, but we have cases. We have cases in Lembah Kelang area. In the Klang Valley area, we have the cases in the southern part of Malaysia. Lecturers, students being detained, involved in extremism and terrorism. Postgraduate student, undergraduate student, college student. Cybersecurity is another challenge to national security. Transnational crime is another thing. So these are among the things which is mentioned in this document. And we also talk about the Dasar Keselamatan dan Ketenteraman Awam, DKKA, which is also a very important document. And in this document, there are 6 pillars that DKKA is talking about that we have to protect. One is upholding constitution, laws, and national institution, meaning that anything that is against the constitution, against the law, or national institutions such as royal institution, it is a threat to public order. Second one is improving governance, integrity, and law enforcement agency, which is not really related to us. Border protection, safeguarding public order and national security. Well, I think that's the job of the law enforcement, police, military. Combating drugs. Maybe we'll have some cases of the drug use at the higher education institution. We have to admit that the presence of student use illegal substance at universities in Klang Valley. We have to deal with it. It becomes a big risk if we do not take action right now. I think this is not a new thing, actually. The student use, for example, weeds in the university is not a new thing. So what is the countermeasures has been taken, has been put in place? I remember I used to report because I have a student who have a problem. Then I invite the student, interview the student. So I found out that he consumed certain illegal substances, and I report the authorities. But I'm not sure what happened to him after that. But I believe that it is responsibility of everyone to combat the presence of the illegal substances in the university. And protection of national asset. This one is also the job of the law enforcement, national law enforcement, especially CGSO. Here we have we call it the Chief Security Officer. It's the Prime Minister's office. I think I interviewed him 2-3 days ago, Datuk Rahimi. Yeah, he was telling me about the challenge that he faced in protecting national asset in the age of artificial intelligence. Okay, so these are among the things that is related to the higher education institution. And we also have laws related to national security issues. Penal Code 130JB. Actually, it is based on my article that I wrote when I become the expert witness in court for terrorism cases. The court asked me to write a report. So I write an article, and this is the report. So I compile certain laws which is related to terrorism offenses. Possession of image, of video, of books, donation to terrorism, it can be charged under Penal Code 130JB A or B, imprisonment for a term not exceeding 7 years, fine, forfeiture, property, asset, money laundering, AMLA, 15 years imprisonment, and so on and so forth. So we have like a legal framework in place in dealing with these kind of issues. Now, next issues is security landscape at the university. What does that mean? Malaysia adopted open sky policy in the education sector. And I would say it is very positive, it's contribute to economic growth, it's invite investment, it's encourage investment from outside. We have the expertise in place because people from the outside come to Malaysia, share their expertise, and we have a knowledge exchange, cultural exchange, and so on. It's very positive things. We don't deny that. So another aspect is that universities also become the safe space for any kind of ideas. Because in the name of research, you can research about anything. You can experiment with all kinds of ideas, including radical ideas. That's why university become a safe space or a perfect space for any kind of radical ideas to grow, because in the name of research. And we also have the convergence of people and culture and ideas. This is very interesting also. People from all over the world converge in one place. If you look at the people in IUN, we have people from so many countries. They have a different culture, they have a different idea, they have a different attitude. So this is a metropolitan, I would say. And in the university also is an environment to learn, acquiring skill, expertise. But what kind of expertise they learn and how this expertise is going to use for is another question. And we also have a student with inquisitive mind, with adventurous spirit, learners, and global connection, networking with a global citizen. So for most people, I would say, for most people, these are the positive things. Undoubtedly, it is positive things. However, we forgot to ask this question. Is there any risk present here because of that, what happened? Because of this kind of phenomena. People converge in one place, mingling, learning things, different ideas, and so on. For the people who have security mindset, we have to be careful and we have to look deeper. There are possibilities. If we look at from security mindset, the intrusion of foreign threats, people from outside the countries or from a certain countries come to Malaysia and posing threats. For example, they used to be the members of terrorist organization outside, come to Malaysia to study. Our governments, our university does not know who is or the identity of the person. One day, the police came to university and tried to find out about the student. And we have become shocked, like, what happened? That happened because there is no background check. That happened because there is no collaboration between universities and the law enforcement. So the information is not being shared, and therefore the threat is not being identified. We also have the problem of ideological threat, radicalization, extremism, terrorism, deviant teaching in the university. We have certain people with certain ideologies. And finally, people announce it, people discover it, the law enforcement side discover it, and they come to university, detain the person, only then people know about that. That's what happened. That's what happened, really. For the past 10, 20 years that I'm in this business, I have seen similar thing happen. There are some cases involve certain universities, including in our university, but it has not become a big news because we deal it discreetly. We settle the problem discreetly, and that is fine. But we cannot afford to turn our blind eyes to this kind of threat. We have to be proactive, identifying the threat before it becomes a big issue, become big threat or risk to the institution, to the reputation of the institution. Because once it's happened, or once it affects the reputation of the university, it's very difficult to recover from that. The 3R issues, highly sensitive, involving race, religion, and royal institution, is also sometimes university being used as a platform to raise these kind of things, and therefore it creates tension. But in the name of the freedom of expression, for example, this issue is being raised. But we have to deal with this reality as well. Involvement in the international terrorist organization. There are claims, for example, that this particular student involved in certain group in their country, which is labeled as the terrorist organization. What are we going to do with it? Involving in supporting radical ideology. Well, when we talk about radical ideology, it could be a lot of categories. It could be a strongly radical group or mildly radical group, and so many other categories. Like, for example, Salafi Wahhabi, Salafi Jihadi group, or Shia group, or Ayah Pin group, Tuhan Harun group. These ideas is very dangerous. When you do not treat the ideas, it grows. And when you don't deal with it much earlier, it's become a threat in future. Initially, it's just a potential threat. But when you do not manage the threat, it becomes actual threats. So that's the formula. When you fail to manage it, something which is potentially in nature or originally later become actual because the failure to act. Involvement in underground movement, deviant teaching, gangsterism, or political movement that may threaten national security and public order. So these are among the nature of threat or risks that we are dealing with. Let me tell you another interesting thing. Involvement in espionage and subversive element. You may say, no, we don't have cases like that. I'm telling you earlier, I told you earlier that if you say that there is no cases that happened before as the basis for the belief that it is not going to happen in future, you might be wrong. A lot of things that happen in reality today because people never thought about that. That's why it's happened. So when I mentioned about the case of espionage, I'm talking about what is happening now, actually. Okay? Maybe we can discuss in more secure environment. We'll talk about something of this nature. The involvement in distribution of illegal substances, I mentioned much earlier, involving crime, including prostitution. We have to be careful, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. We are living right now in the age of ICT, the age of smartphone, the age of social media, in which this kind of crimes, scam, prostitution can easily happen. You might be surprised that there are prostitution ring in the university. And I think if you want to learn more about this, you can invite JSJ people, okay? People from the crime section, the Royal Malaysia Police. They can tell you that there are prostitution ring is taking place in the university. Where is it? You have to invite them and to let them speak. Where is it and what is happening? I'm just giving you the direction. But there are the existence of the prostitution ring in the higher education institution is real things, beside the weeds and cocaine and drugs and so on. So we are not living in a very rosy world, actually. The world looks so rosy because our mind and eyes is not trained to see beyond something rosy and try to find out what actually behind it. Involvement in sabotaging organization, whether physical or non-physical. This I'm talking about the physical risk. I think Dr. Shaliza mentioned about the physical risks to the organization. They sabotage the institution. There are people with that kind of nature. So if that happened, ladies and gentlemen, what should we do with it? There is some kind of preparation that we need to put in place. There are certain mechanisms that we put in place. Don't wait until it's happened. We have to prepare. Let's say there are cases involving sabotage of the organization. What should we do? Then we have to identify the risk, the threat, and we have to neutralize it. Of course, you might say we have a SOP if this thing happened. Yes, I know where there are SOP when this thing happened already. What I'm talking about here is that preventive measures. Risk management office is dealing with prevention. So prevention means proactive, early detection. So that's the way we think. So let us go to this scenario. Let's say we have cases like this. We have information that one of your staff involved in supporting militant group in Ukraine. Of course, it is not real, but let's say we have the information of that nature. What is the mechanism? What is the SOP that we have in dealing with this kind of case? I'm not sure whether we have it, but we have to be prepared. There would be a case like this happened. Somebody, let's say from the law enforcement, has informed the university or have informed the organization that your staff involving in this kind of group. Okay, what we're gonna do? Are we gonna what they call fire the person? Are we going to investigate, try to find out? So these are among the things that we have to be prepared so that when it's happened, we have the mechanism in place to deal with the situation. Or we have a report saying that a student at your university become a target for assassination. This is a scenario building, ladies and gentlemen. Can it happen? Of course it can happen. I specifically mentioned assassination. Maybe to some of you is a kind of far-fetched. But I mentioned to you right now is actually as a preparation for the future. Maybe it is not happening now. It might happen in the next 2-3 years, 5 years. Looking at the present situation in Palestine right now. Maybe some universities are hosting Palestinian students. And you know the intelligence, Israeli intelligence agency, they make a statement, very open statement. They say that any members of terrorist organization Hamas, whether walking on the street, on the ground, underground, and outside the country, would be a dead man. Clearly. So I guess that we have a lot of Malaysians, we have a lot of Palestinian students in Malaysia. They might be involved in this group, might be or allegedly involved, can be a target. What preparations should we make in facing this reality? Or another scenario, we receive a tip-off that people from your institution involved in espionage. Again, it's a scenario. But if this thing happened, what are the preventive measures that we can make? What are the steps and mechanism? Legal mechanism? I don't know. You have a better idea about how to deal with this kind of nature. What I'm sharing with you is actually the possibilities and the scenario that might happen based on my experience dealing with the security issues in this country. So, in conclusion, I would say, generally speaking, there are externally generated risk. The risk that is coming from outside the country, coming to the country and become a risk that we have to deal with. And there are also internally generated risk, something which is coming internally from our country. And there are also the organizationally generated risk, something which is rootedly coming from the organization. So for each category, what are the mechanisms? What are the measures that we have to take in order to prevent from becoming a bigger problem? So the threat to national security is different. This is very important for us to know. Threat to national security is different from ordinary crime. It doesn't need many cases to prove its lethality, meaning that we cannot wait until there are so many cases happen only then we want to take action. In my view, one case is enough reason for us to take appropriate measures. One case. Please don't wait until we have second and third cases. If you do that, you are jeopardizing the organization, and not only the organization, but also the country. Sometimes we know there is something's going on, but we don't do anything. We just monitor and observe and no intervention. Finally, it becomes a big problem. So inaction will lead to a bigger problem, and based on the statistical records, failure to act was the reason problem grew bigger and harder to solve. And failure to act now for various excuses, for example, well, we lack of budget, this is not our priority, and this has never happened before. This would be the reason why the problems grow bigger and become harder to problem. And the person who has this kind of mindset, this kind of thinking, this kind of mindset should be fired and should be removed from taking this responsibility dealing with the security issues, because that's exactly what happened when the country become a target by another country. The impact is big, even though one cases. So that's why I said, then when it comes to security matters, whether it is small or big, action need to be taken immediately. So that's why I differentiate between just ordinary crime, like murder case, which, yeah, it is very pressing issues, very urgent issues, but when it comes to national security, it is actually very, very urgent. Now, managing security risk, I think I am going towards the end of the presentation. We need to have early detection mechanism. I talked to you about just now, the mindset. I talked to you already about the law, the framework that we have in this country. I also talked to you about the security landscape at the university, the global landscape, and also what's going on around the world that may impact us. Now, taking all this in totality, what should we do? We need to develop early detection mechanism. And after that, once we identify the threats, the risk, we need to have an early intervention mechanism or programs. We cannot just say we have detected the threat or risk, we have write the report and we keep it there. That is the most stupid things to do, in fact, in my view. You do not actually delay when it comes to security issues. It will come back to you. It will come back to us because the failure to take action. So basically, and I think this Office of Risk Management knows this better, when it comes to identifying the risk, I'm sure they have a more sophisticated tools and measures to do it. But usually we start with identification of the risk. The assessment is being made, whether it is potential risk, potential threat, whether it is actual threat, whether it is residual threats, whether it is a very severe, whether it is in terms of likelihood, for example, it is a very likely, unlikely, and so on. Mitigation need to be taken, therefore we can have prevention. Usually these are the process. And I think in IUM, they come up with the policy, I think. Risk assessment or risk management policy, which is very good, a very good document. I have seen it. I have gone through that. It's a perfect document, but I believe it can be improved further. But the basic idea is avoidance. We need to avoid and we need to prevent, and it need to be consistently do it, not just like today we do it and then next few months we don't really care about that and let it happen. This is not the way we work, especially in security. Security is consistency. Because when your guard is down, this is where you get attacked, actually. And you have to remember, you are dealing with security issues. It's involved a lot of people. And continuous improvement, sorry for the spelling, but continuous improvement is also very important. And we have to identify whether it is potential risk, actual risk, residual risk. For example, we have taken all measures in order to solve the problem, but suddenly there is a landslide happen, or there is a flood happen. Well, it's a residual risk, meaning that we have taken care of everything else, but it still happened. We call it, there is a possibility of residual risk. Okay. So that is when it comes to managing the risk. Now, I'm going to close my presentation with one advice, that is managing risk from Islamic perspective. There is a hadith, actually. I believe that many of you has listened to this before. The Prophet said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadi, fa in lam yastati' bi lisani, fa in lam yastati' bi qalbi, wa dhalika adhaful iman." So basically, the prophetic wisdom is that when there is a destructive element identified in your surrounding, you got to change it. You cannot wait. You cannot delay it. So you change it according to your own capacity, whether you use executive power. If you are in office, you have a power to change it by hands, by power, or by verbal expression, advisory, by giving advice. And if you're not able to do it by illam yastati', then disapproval of heart or personal reservation. But the idea is, you cannot sit still and do nothing, because there is an English word saying a lot of bad things happen because the good people do nothing, they said. I think that's the spirit, or that's the wisdom of the Prophet which is mentioned here. Whether it is by hand, with the tongue, with the heart, but you have to change it according to your capacity. So I think these are the closing remarks from me. I hope that this is useful, and I look forward for a discussion. And now I hand over back to the MC moderator. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ahmad Al Muhammadi, for a very wonderful sharing. I consider this talk today is like a wake-up call for all, particularly in addressing security risks in the organization due to the fast-growing social media trends globally. Okay, I hope all the input gained from this talk can inculcate strong awareness on the risk coordinators' responsibilities to manage and coordinate risks at the respective offices, have a good understanding on the scope and context of enterprise risk management at IIUM, and finally, everyone is aware on the current risk issues and challenges faced in the university. Without further ado, let's proceed to the Q&A session. For those who wish to ask any questions, or if you need any further clarification pertaining to this topic, feel free to ask. Okay. You can ask questions through our chat rooms. Okay. If you have any questions, maybe you can ask a question through the chat rooms as well as the YouTube chat, and I will read the question.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Latif here. Just to ask the opinion from Dr. Ahmad Al Muhammadi, on the notice that US ambassador in Malaysia given notice regarding our support to Palestine. What is the effect to happen to our country? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cik Latif, for the question. Regarding the question about the some kind of warning and threat by the foreign government to Malaysia, there are 2-3 things that we can consider. Number one is our support to Palestinian struggle is not a new thing. The previous prime ministers, since the first one, the Tengku Abdul Rahman, until now, continuously support the Palestinian struggle. And so the prime minister's stance and official stand of Malaysia regarding the Palestinian struggle is not a new thing. it has been consistently asserted. So there is no problem with that in that sense. The current Prime Minister just continue whatever the previous Prime Minister has done. Number two, Malaysia is a sovereign state, meaning that it has its own way of dealing with a matter like this. And it has its own flexibility, its choice that other country from the outside cannot actually force Malaysia to take certain action. But when it comes to risk, when it comes to threats, I think there is some risk involved, definitely. Some difficulty that we might face, especially when it comes to education, when it comes to movement of people, when it comes to relations, because usually when you do not bow down to certain pressure like this, there is some implication involved. But I would say the implication is limited, and they cannot do much harm actually to the integrity and to the interests of the country. If that thing happened, meaning that if the risk is bigger, I think the Prime Minister wouldn't do that. So I think he was very calculative. He know to what extent the country like United States can actually put pressure or can harm Malaysia or can actually affect Malaysia's interests. And in his view, they cannot do much. So I think we have to put trust in the Prime Minister's administration or decision, and hopefully everything would be fine.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.
Okay, any more questions? Maybe we have one question from Dr. Shirley.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad, for the very thorough explanation on security.
You're welcome.
But the risk assessment that you have shared just now is quite similar to our risk methodology that we practice at the office, and as well as the rest of the officers, KCIM. Okay, what I like to enlighten further, or if you can share further, is like, because you say that the early detections and then the early intervention. So when you say you detect once and then we have to follow up by the intervention. Okay, so the in particular intervention sometimes include not just one unit. It might include external party, it might include other officers. So how do you think that we can move on or give the intervention program a success?
Well, I believe that it is depend on the case-to-case basis. Let me give you one example. Let's say there is one student being found involved in planning to assassinate somebody or to kill their lecturers, for example. Let us give a scenario like this. So we identify the student, we identify the person. What is this? What should be done? Like, what is the step that we have to take as a move, as the way forward? I'm not sure whether we have the mechanism in place to deal with the kind of cases, but I believe it is needed. And the best way to deal with this kind of nature is to sort this problem internally without involving the third party outside. Because it is when it's involved legal cases, the thing become more difficult, and it's getting worse actually. It's getting, more difficult to control. And finally, in terms of solving the problem, it has a limited impact. So I would propose, if we have cases involving the staff, the students, the communities in the higher education institution, we need to solve this internally, and we need to consult the expert to deal with it. I'm sure that we have legal people there who can advise, but it is preferred that we do not involve the third party or somebody from the outside the institution. Involving the institution is very much later. I mean, after we are not able to resolve the problem by ourselves, and I think that we can refer to the third party outside. but keeping them in the know about what is happening in the institution, especially when it comes to national security issues, is very important. Let me tell you one example. There is one student in IUM before involving in supporting terrorist group. It has been identified. I came to know about that much later, but I met with the student, speak directly to him, and I informed the Royal Malaysia Police, the E8, said, I am dealing with this type of student, let me handle it. And we have to find out what is going on. And the intervention program is made, the assessment is made. So therefore, we can resolve the problem internally. If I don't do that, this student would be discovered by the authorities. He's going to be quickly arrested. He's going to be charged in court. His life is going to be over. So the preventive measures need to be made, first of all, because we have to deal with prevention, not prosecution, not, how can I say, we don't have to use executive decision in terms of we don't have to use the legal approach first. Let us settle this thing problem unless there is a need for that. But one thing for sure, we have to inform the authorities that we have a case and we are doing it, because when it comes to national security, the authorities finally will find out. Like if you don't inform them, they would find out. And then another thing is, we have like international students. We have a lot of international students in our university. So what are the mechanisms that we have in place, especially in ensuring that they are safe here, especially when it becomes the target of certain countries, certain people? Do we have this kind of thing in place? To what extent we're going to do it? If let's say they become the source of target, what should we do? So I think these are the risks that we have to deal with. Maybe we say that this is not urgent, but I would say, yeah, it is not urgent because it never happened before, but it is important. And we have to decide right now, what should we do with it? Because once it's happened, we have mechanism in place to deal with it easily. You know what? I'm telling you this because I have seen similar cases happen. The other guy told me, don't worry, this thing never happened before. And when it's happened, they don't know what to do with it. So before it's happened, then we have to find out. There are mechanisms, I believe, that the risk management office has in place. For example, how to get this information, to what extent, the level of threat, and so on. We can do that. We can implement that mechanism, get the facts, plan the action, and come up with a mechanism. Then I think it is much easier for us to deal with the problem, rather than we thought that it's never happened, then when it's happened, it caught us by surprise. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We have another one question from the YouTube. Again, Assalamualaikum, Doctor. In order to best manage security risks, the principle HANRO that was introduced more than 30 years ago should be best approached. However, implementation or cultivation still seems lacking. The question here is, do you have any suggestion what the government and society as a whole can better cultivate HANRO in our people?
Mention about the apa tu tadi?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question again? I mean, I do not get the first part of the question. I mean, the government has introduced what?
In order to best manage security risks, the principle HANRO, HANRUH.
Okay.
Okay, that was introduced more than 30 years ago should be the best approach. However, implementation or cultivation still seems lacking. Okay, so the question here is, do you have any suggestion what the government and society as a whole can better cultivate HANRO in our people?
What's happening?
I have no idea what it's HANRO.
Yeah, I think what I can gather from what I observe, we have actually a very good tools. We have very good mechanism. We have a very good strategy in place. We always have that. But when it comes to implementation, we have problems, especially in terms of the consistency of following that. And it's happened because number one, because of the leadership, and number two, because of the working culture, the attitude and working culture, and the third one is because of the mindset. Now, a few days ago, I met with the chief government security officer, who is protecting national asset, and having a discussion about him, what the biggest challenge that he faced as a person who's in charge. Actually, his job just like you guys at the risk management office, but his jurisdiction is much bigger because he's protecting 1,000 asset nationally in Malaysia here. He said that the challenge that we face today is not like the challenge that we had before. 20 years ago, the challenge was different. Right now, the challenge is different. If you do not have, number one, leadership, good working culture, right mindset, is very difficult. It's very difficult to implement any kind of project, any kind of policy. So based on my observation of what he has done at the CGSO, that's the office, his office is, they have this thing, they have the leadership, they have the right working culture, they have a right mindset, forward looking, and the thing can be implemented. And based on that's why the reason I met him, because of the research that I've conducted, research regarding the public perception about security regarding national asset. Is our national asset is safe? The public have a conviction, have a belief that they are safe. They have this perception because the guys in charge of the protection of national asset is the right people. Let me share with you another thing. I have interviewed one former prime minister. I have a chance to see him and ask him, what is the biggest challenge for you as a prime minister? I don't want to tell you which prime minister is, but it is a former prime minister. And he said this, he said that it is my challenge, first of all, to find the right people, the competent right people, put in the right place, and you will be able to work with the person. So I think that finding the right people who has chemistry with the job, sometimes you put people who do not have a chemistry with the job, they cannot do it. They're just being there because they're being put in there. But I think if you can find somebody who has a chemistry with the job, with the responsibility that he's been in charge to, the person can do miracle. I think that's the essence, regardless of whether the mechanism, the policy is good, is bad, it actually has less relevance. But I think the most important thing is the person loved the job. He would do his best, or she would do her best in that job. I think that's the problem. It's not really with the policy. It's not with the mechanism. It's not with the policy. That's my view. Thank you.
All right, I have one question to ask Dr. Ahmad.
Yes.
Okay, how far the public universities in Malaysia has gone to address security issue in the institution, and the readiness of the institution to take up the security risk as one of their key risks in the university?
I might be wrong, and my knowledge might be limited, but based on what I observe, the issues or the awareness about the importance of the issue is very limited. Because how many people actually dealing, or how many people actually have the experience of dealing with the security matters of this nature? I happen to be dealing with this issue because I study about this one, and I work in the same field. Therefore, I happen to know about all the nature of the threat. But I don't think that there's not many people are not only that know, but also interested to know, and also because of its rarity. Because it's rarity, it only happen once in a while. So I do not think that it's become a big priority for the higher education institution to look into this. But I think given the situation right now, we have to start thinking about this. Let me put it this way: if you want to join PTD, what they call the government servant, they would conduct a kind of they call it tapisan. Okay, background check. So there are two types of background check. Number one is the general background check, tapisan kasar, in which they ask you where do you study, where do you live, and where is your family, and so on and so forth. And the second level of the background check is tapisan halus. This is where they go deeper, asking people close to you, your activities, your movement. They will follow you for 3-4 months maybe, and to see the pattern of your life and try to finally decide, okay, this person is clean, you can put them in place in certain sensitive work. So that's the nature of work. Are we doing the same thing? Have we checked? Well, I don't think we have the capacity to do this kind of mass background check of the student and also the staff. But I think we need to have this kind of mechanism when there are cases happen, then we can do this kind of background check so that it is easier for the university to liaise with the law enforcement, like the police, because every university, they have a person in charge of the law enforcement, the security of the university and what's going on inside there. Then we can work together with them. And definitely this kind of work requires participation, collaboration with the law enforcement agencies such as Royal Malaysia Police. Thank you.
Okay. Alright, sige, sige.
I have another issue that seems to trouble us. There's the stand, because it also relates to religion, which is that the stand that of inclusivity means that on disability students and so on, but to the Western countries, inclusivity means on the LGBT. Right. So does our stand not accepting, not into LGBT, is that a security risk element is inside there as well?
Well, I would say yes. This is a physical security, if I may put it that way. Disability is a one big concern in the advanced countries, and if we have the community of disabilities in our university, for example, we have to figure out, like, we have to do a kind of investigation and try to find out what are their needs, what are their needs, and what are their difficulties and grievances. And we have to address that, because I think in the spirit of our university, Rahmatan lil Alamin and Sejahtera framework and so on, we have to work along that line. And as I said earlier, we have to be proactive. And I'm very happy to see the Office of Risk Management here at IUM has taken a proactive approach in addressing this issue. And I think that it should be continued, it should be support, and we have to work together in making sure that this kind of project, this kind of initiative is being supported and can be implemented. And definitely people from the financial side need to be understanding. The people from the management side, especially the top management side, need to be aware and need to be cooperative and very supportive of this kind of work. If not, then you're not going to go anywhere. Actually, you're going to start in talking and without doing anything. That's why I mentioned about, first of all, about the mindset. If the people do not have a mindset, if the people do not have an awareness, they're not going to sell you, they're going to buy your ideas. So first of all, we have to get the buy-in, and I think everything else would be easy.
Dr. Ahmad, the one that means does LGBT is give some sense of security threat to the university. Is there any agenda that below, because you say to observe what we see Mata Kasar here, right? But there is also underlying issues like, how about LGBT? How about the issues on social? Is there a social security risk that they are also underground having some same gender? Because by religion, of course, it's not Makan Syariah, but in underground, does that happen? Okay, because in Western, yes, they uphold to LGBT. In some state, they allow same-sex marriages. So is there a sense of security to the university with regard to LGBT?
LGBT issues is actually one of the, I call this as social radicalization. Actually, radicalization can be classified into three categories. One is religious radicalization, when people become radical because of religious reason. The second one is political radicalization, that become radical because of political issues. The third one is social radicalization, when they embrace certain values, lifestyle that's not actually in line with the values of and principle of Islam, and also the mainstream values that we have in this country. Definitely, therefore, based on the principle of Rukun Negara even, we have this principle, we have the pillars in Rukun Negara, that is ethics and katasusulaaan. For example, whenever we have to admit, we have to accept the mainstream values of the society, not bringing something new, which is not in line with the values of the local values and the mainstream values in this country, especially when it's based in religious principle. Therefore, definitely right then you can see that it is a threat. Once we identify the threats, the next question would be how we are going to deal with it. You know, I'm dealing with terrorism threat in Malaysia. So when the authorities have the problem of radicalization, for example, or those people who are being arrested for terrorism charges, they're going to invite me. They're going to go to prison. Actually, that's why I go to prison, because of meeting this group of people. And in there, we call this program as Program Pemulihan Khas, meaning that in that meeting, in that program, we have a dialogue, we have discussion. The purpose of the discussion is just try to find out what they think and why they're doing what they do. So I think in the similar context, those people who involved in this kind of thing, I do not think that we can actually ignore them, or we humiliate them, or we disrespect them. We have to be close with them, actually. We have to invite them to our office and have a discussion in a very friendly manner, try to find out what's wrong with it, and let us figure out the best way to move forward. If we start making enemy, I mean, start making problem for them, or try to persecute them, try to punish them first before talking to them, I think that is going to backfire completely. It's not going to work. So we need a good officer. We need a good officer, somebody that they can trust, dealing with this issue, talking to them, try to find out what happened. I believe that kind of approach, this is part of da'wah, I would say. I noticed that in many institutions, punishment is greater than prevention, I would say, or punishment is greater than mercy. There are certain things that we can actually do before we punish somebody. Why the institution become monster? Why the institution become very punitive? So whenever we have problem like extremism, problem like terrorism, which is actually a threat to national security, I actually having a lot of discussion, not only with the Royal Malaysia Police, but also with the Minister of Home Affairs, the importance of prevention. And they agreed, finally, they agreed that prevention is the best way forward. Not just to wait until the person commit the offense, you arrest the person, you put them in prison. So the way forward would be, Dr. Shaliza, I would say we have to approach this type of people, try to find out and try to understand that actually we can solve a bigger problem through conversation than punishment. That's my experience. When you start punish people without investigating, without properly understand what happened, that would create bigger problem. There would be a lot of grievances. And I think the person who are responsible to do that should be fired and should be punished in the first place, because they have done a wrong job. Actually, they have done the wrong things to the people. And this is doesn't reflect the values that IUM is actually upholding. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you, Dr. Ahmad. I think there's no more questions. Okay, so Risk Management Office and Management Services Division wish to express our utmost gratitude to Dr. Ahmad Al-Muhammadi for all the valuable knowledge and experience that he has shared with us today. It is hoped that the knowledge gained from this talk shall be beneficial to all. Yeah, before we end, let's have a photo session. Okay, maybe everyone can enable their cameras. Okay, this is just for our record. Okay.
Sabian?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
Nampak ni?
Boleh? Okay, maybe I count. Right. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Nampak, terima kasih jauh-jauh.
Okay, another one. Okay, another one shot. 1, 2, 3. Okay, another one. Another one.
Yeah, no,
Okay, one more, one last shot. All right, 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right, with that, thank you everyone for attending the Premier Risk Talk 2023. Inshallah, we'll meet again next year. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much.